This video is for Dr. Deep State, but for anyone actually. I would like to tell you a story. I discovered your channel probably 2017 or 18, something like that. And in August 2018, I was in a Christian mindset. I wanted to bring about the consciousness of Christ, the cosmic Christ, through what I called cultural Hegelianism. And it was, for me, Christ was a mix of modern pop culture, Evola's mystical insights, and Hegel's philosophy, which included the anti-Hegelian philosophers. And this trinity is the trinity of absolute spirit within Hegel's philosophy. And at this moment, I believe that God was truth, beauty, and goodness. And in August 2018, I was sleeping in my garden because I wanted to live a life of poverty like Christ. But I looked at the sky in the middle of the night, and I saw the reflection of the moon, and I said to myself, over the past 12 months, I've had many what could be called mystical experiences when there was the full moon. So I was, strictly speaking, a lunatic. And I said to myself, but the reason why the moon has so much influence upon me is because when I look at the moon, I see the light of the sun. And I said to myself, I see my own light. And at this moment, I had some sort of a revelation, one could say, that I was the consciousness of the whole of reality. And I thought about a German philosopher, Gottlieb Fichte, in Die Bestimmung des Menschen, the determination of man. I don't know how it's translated in English, but the book that appeared in 1800. And he says at the beginning of the book, I ask my reader to consider that the self which speaks in this book is not the self of the author, but I ask the reader to become this self. And that's what I did. And I realized, if I am this cosmic self, he doesn't use the word cosmic self, but that's how I interpreted it. If I am this cosmic self, then he cannot be, because there's only one cosmic self. So it's either him or me, and the only argument that I have in my own favor is that I am certain that I exist, whereas I can doubt that Fichte existed. So yeah, and so I had this cosmic view of reality, and I believed, I knew that I was God, although strictly speaking I was not God. I would learn that later, that what happened at that moment was what Hegel calls reason. Reason for Hegel is the individual consciousness which becomes aware that the whole of reality occurs within its mind. So it was only a moment in the process of the phenomenology of spirit. And suddenly all the evil realities in reality, all the ugly parts of reality, all the violence, the murders, the horrors, the disgusting things, they were not separated from God, but they were within God, because God was the totality. And it created a feeling of I was overwhelmed, and I wouldn't say disappointed, but I was shocked, because from my view of truth, goodness, beauty to the view of the totality. Within the totality, there is ugliness and violence and evil, and it had a tremendous impact upon me. And I just said, okay, that's too much for me at this moment. I don't have the mental strength, the courage, the will to carry the burden, and I just wanted to forget and to, well, and yeah, so that's what happened. And many years later, I understand that this is what the Christians call the fall of Lucifer, because Lucifer in Christian mythology was the firstborn of the sons of light. And in Hegel's view, Lucifer is the individual consciousness which becomes aware of being the totality, so it becomes the first to be enlightened by God by realizing its unity with God, and then thinks himself as an individual, as an empirical self, capable of creating, whereas only God as a thinking totality can create. And I fell. That was the fall of Lucifer. That's Christian mythology, but in Hegel's philosophy, it's just the work of the negative. And yeah, so that's my story. And to come into relation with what Dr. Deep State says in his videos about Gnosticism, you, if I may speak of you taught me that the elites, the world leaders, the most powerful men, the financial elites, the CIA, the political elites, spiritual elites, whatever. It is by watching your videos that I learned that they were hermetic, gnostic, alchemists, that they were occultists, whatever, that they were seeking spiritual goals. And thanks to another part of me, Apollonian germ, I realized that all these mystical spiritual doctrines were gathered and organized and systematized in Hegel's philosophy. And so I knew that the leaders of the world were Hegelian without knowing that they were Hegelian. And I knew that I was a Hegelian. And that my purpose was to show uh, to the whole world that, strictly speaking, we are all Hegelians, because in the language of Hegel's logic, we are determinations of the eternal logical idea, and this idea alienates itself from itself, and that's what creates the world of nature. And through the intellectual, artistic, and theoretical and practical work of man, brings back into itself and recreates. It's not recreate. It becomes conscious of itself, and it reestablishes unity with itself, and that's the entire process of reality. And also in August 2018, when I had this, what I call the Fichte moment, which in strictly Hegelian language is the birth of reason, as Hegel understands it, namely the one singular consciousness which knows itself to be the consciousness of the totality. I realized that there was a conspiracy, but there was only one conspiracy and only one conspirator, and that the conspirator conspired against himself. And why? Because there is only one spirit, and in conspiracy you have the root word of spirit. So everything is a conspiracy. There's only one conspirator, and the victim of the conspiracy is uh, um, God, one could say, and the author of the conspiracy is also God. And this process of conspiring against yourself is the divine life. And Hegel explains this not with the word conspiracy, but that's how the modern representation uses it. So that's what Hegel calls the trick of reason, that reason thinks that it acts for the interests of the individual who embodies reason, but actually it's acting for a higher purpose at the expense of this individual. But actually, by realizing reason, he's actualizing his true rational self. So in the end, it's a good compromise, one could say. So yeah, and here's just the introduction to the broad context, and I will make another video for Dr. Deep State in which I will comment on the, the Gnostic aspect that you developed in some of your videos.